Hey guys, so today's episode, and we don't even know how we're going to structure this, but this specific episode is going to be slightly different. Uh, we've talked about the process and we've given you bits and pieces about the process, but I think it's really valuable for me personally to learn more about Lorenzo. I want to kind of really get into his obsession with reviews mining. I know it's really powerful, and I know over the years he's been able to share with me. He's one. I'll just give a little secret to you guys. He's a weirdo who sometimes at night before he goes to bed, he goes to Amazon and he'll pick a product and he starts reading customer reviews to understand why people are buying certain products. And I don't think I've met any other marketer who even kind of is aware of the insights that you have in your customer reviews. So he's got a very unique perspective on this. And in this interview, I want to really kind of probe him a little further so I can understand personally what his approach is and what the value is, and what reviews mining really even means. So Lorenzo, are you ready for some questions?
I'm super excited. I want to share as much as possible about reviews mining and its benefits and my process, anything I can.
The first thing I want to say is that I don't know of anyone who is doing reviews mining, and maybe you know of someone who might be doing it, but I've certainly never met anyone who's doing it. And so my question to you is that how the hell did you come up with this idea?
Yeah, so actually, it goes back to, I want to say 24 months ago, a couple of years ago, probably a little bit longer than that. So a few years ago, I went down the rabbit hole of jobs to be done. And the first time I heard about that framework, I thought it was very, very powerful. And in general, I'm the type of person that is extremely curious. I need to go, in my life, I've gone down a lot of different rabbit holes, just because for me, learning is power. And so what I did was I really got obsessed with jobs to be done from a content perspective, so understand as much as possible, but also from a practitioner perspective. So, learning and reading and watching interviews of people that were doing jobs to be done and then applying for my clients. And one day in specific, I remember having spent like 2 or 3 hours listening to podcasts about jobs to be done. And towards the end of the day, I had to buy some product online. I don't remember what it was, basically. And I remember going on Amazon for to look for that product. And on Amazon, obviously, I checked the review of that product. And because I had the recency bias of jobs to be done, that was still kind of like in the back burner of my brain, right? But in that moment, I had switched the brain from marketer's brain to consumer brain because I was buying something for myself, right? So reading through the review, I had a sort of like aha moment where I was like, oh my God, this person. And again, I was wearing the consumer hat, but sometimes it's difficult to switch from one hat to another one, right? And I remember specifically reading a bunch of reviews around, oh, I had this experience, the reason why I bought this product for X, Y, and Z reason, before buying, I thought that this product, had this kind of issue. So what happened is that I was like, oh my God, this is a lot of kind of like jobs to be done language, right? So so then I went down even more of a rabbit hole, and I was like, well, I wonder if other products have a lot of insights about decision making that people have gone through. And that's kind of what I started doing. I started reading reviews of a lot of different products. And you mentioned that sometimes I'm a weirdo. I would spend like nights on the couch just reading through customer reviews instead of watching Netflix shows, just because the more I was reading with the marketer hat rather than the consumer hat, the more I was seeing a pattern of insights that people were sharing, right? So from there, I decided to say, okay, I need to develop a sort of like a framework for this, because in a lot of these reviews, there is a lot of different insights and patterns and themes that people are sharing. So that's kind of like when I decided to say, okay, from reading customer reviews just to understand why people make decision, to come up with a framework.
Yeah, and I just want to for those of you who are listening, and one thing that's really important for us is that we really believe in being vulnerable in terms of like talking, just there are lots of things that I don't understand. And some of you might say, hey, what the hell is this jobs to be done? There's no, first of all, very few people in the world understand it, trust me. So I barely understand it. So what I wanted to just say was that, if you have any questions about jobs to be done, just write a comment and say, we'd like to learn more about jobs to be done. If we get enough comments, we'll actually make an episode that just talks about jobs to be done. But for now, I mean, Lorenzo's, just to give a recap, as I understand what he's saying, is that, when people write a review, they are, obviously they are writing reviews like the shipping was good, the product was good, the product works really well. I don't think he's paying attention to that aspect of the review. What he's really paying attention to is what was their anxiety, what are they switching from, what were some of the attributes that that were kind of like they were nervous about, what are the attributes that they really like the best. And so, and again, am I correct, Lorenzo, in terms of like,
so not, I would say not just that. I want to understand the story that people are telling in the review, because what happens is that in the story, like the way to think about it, we're like detectives basically, right? So, a detective, when an homicide happens, they need to understand the story behind what happened to, that person that got killed or got accused, right? And, reviews hide a lot of stories on what happened to people that got to that point of making that decision. How they use the product, with whom they use the product, what made them push to buy that product. So I'm curious about, and again, it goes back to like my obsession for curiosity and learning. Reviews unveil a lot of those stories.
That absolutely makes sense. My next question is that there are ways of, if the idea is to gauge the temperature of what is going through the buyer's mind or the visitor's mind, we do have tools like on-site survey tools like HotJar, where we can kind of activate it. We can collect some feedback, like, are you here to buy today? Are you here to research? We can ask them some other qualitative questions. Can you tell us a little bit about how reviews mining or reviews that are written are different from what a tool like a HotJar would do?
Yeah, so HotJar, is, so there are two different kind of like goals, and also one doesn't exclude or is better than the other one.
Yeah.
Because with a tool like HotJar, you want to understand a specific question from a user while the user is visiting the site, right? And when I talk about visiting the site, doesn't necessarily mean that the user hasn't purchased yet, because you can use, an exit poll, for example, for the members area, for, let's say, your subscription-based business, and you have the members area where people go and they can kind of like make changes to the order, change frequency. You can still run an exit poll, but people already bought that product, right? So reviews mining is the reason why, I got a, kind of like a super excited about that, is because people already made a decision about buying. And now, without us bugging them with an exit poll, with a widget, they're actually sort of, I say sort of, but they're sort of like organically sharing their experience. The other thing is, I've done a lot of exit pulse analysis, for a lot of different clients in a lot of different industries, niches, not just e-com, even SaaS and so on. And one common theme there is that people don't really tend to share a lot of insights around their on-site experience. That doesn't matter what the question you're asking is. On the contrary, with reviews mining, especially like on Amazon, people just tend to share a lot. And obviously, the more people share, the more insights you gather, the more powerful you can be with those insights.
Um, that absolutely makes sense. I can see, what I like about a review is it's a moment in time when the purchase is fresh in the mind of the buyer. They've purchased the product, they've tried the product, and they remember their story, because 6 months down the road it's hard to recall the sequence of circumstances that led you to buy the product, whereas when you get that email after 2 weeks, you remember it. And so I think it's really powerful.
Yeah,
I think
the other thing about reviews mining, which is extremely interesting, is that people not only, and not everybody obviously, but people not only tend to share either why they bought a product or the anxiety, but even how they consume the product, right? And in general, e-commerce companies don't really tend to do a lot of customer research around why people buy. Imagine if they did research around how people consume a product, right? And reviews mining is the perfect place where they actually share how they've consumed that product. And when I talk about consume a product, I don't mean like, eating food or drinking water. I mean, even like you buy a couch and you consume it, meaning that you might be, inviting some friends over for dinner and everybody compliments about how beautiful your couch is, right? Or somebody, one of your friends might be over for dinner. That person gets drunk, can't drive back home, sleeps on the couch, and the day after, that person tells you how confident the sofa is, right? So that's product consumption. That's how I define it.
And this kind of leads me to my next question, which is, what is, when we go down a rabbit hole and we go down a journey, we kind of have an idea as to what we'll find. What is something that you now know that is something you get from reviews mining that you didn't really know that would be something you'd get when you started this journey?
Yeah, for sure. I thought that, and again, the reason why I had that thought before starting the reviews mining journey is because I tended to read reviews with the consumer hat on. Somebody that had, like, if I have to decide to go to a restaurant, right? I'm going to be reading the reviews about, the restaurant, the quality of the food on Yelp or TripAdvisor, depending which part of the world you're in. And all you want to know from a consumer perspective is, well, is this food good? Is the service good? How about the pricing, right? But that's the consumer point of view. So when I started to shift my hat completely from wearing the consumer hat to the marketer's hat, I was like, oh my God, like, people are sharing a lot of useful information that companies should leverage. The other surprising thing is that whenever I compared the insight that people share on Amazon versus on the classic e-com like Shopify or BigCommerce, whatever the CMS is, they tend to be very different. People tend to share much more on Amazon. So you tend to have a lot of more content and insights shared on Amazon compared to the classic e-commerce, which, there's a lot of, kind of like solution to avoid that issue. You wrote a lot about that on your blog. We had some kind of like similar thoughts, but yeah, so definitely Amazon is, much more insightful when it comes to like reviews mining than product pages of normal e-commerce.
So just to kind of explore this a little further. So
Yeah.
I'm really curious to know, like, what is something that you've learned from reviews mining today? And maybe there isn't, right? But I'm curious, like, is there something that, today you realize that, oh my God, this is this thing that I can get from reviews mining that you actually didn't anticipate would be something that would be really valuable, like 2 years ago when you just started reading reviews on Amazon?
Yeah, so I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you an example. I remember one time reading a very insightful review. Somebody was saying it was about a product for, it was like a acne skincare product. And somebody in that review was saying, I've been struggling with acne for years and years and years. And I was never able to find a skincare product, a lotion that, helped me get rid of acne. But once I found a product, my acne was gone, right? So imagine, there's another kind of like, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of like products similar to like acne and skincare acne. But there's a lot of struggle, whenever people have acne, obviously. And then that person said, the only problem, quotes, about your product is that it was getting a little bit too expensive for my wallet. So after a while, I couldn't really afford it. So what he did was he went and switched, even though he loved the product, the product worked for him after so many years of struggle. He switched from that product because it was too expensive to another product that it was cheaper. The problem is that when he switched, he basically like the acne started to pop up again on his skin, right? So all of a sudden, he got pushed away from a solution that he had found to another, because of the price, to another solution. Problem is that that solution was not working for him anymore. So what happened is that he went back to the previous product that has worked so well for him, and then he became a customer for life, right? So I think a story, when I remember reading that story, I was like, oh my God, this is like so powerful, because basically you're communicating two things. First of all, you're communicating how amazing the product is, right? And how it's worked extremely well. Second, you're actually counter responding to an objection, right, that the user might have, which is like, oh my God, it might get a little bit too expensive. And third, actually, there is a third one, which is like, you will never switch again because I've switched and I've made the mistake of switch. Don't make the same mistake, right?
They should have taken that person and made a TV commercial out of his story.
I know, right? Exactly. So for me, when I read that, I was like, oh my God, companies have no idea what's going on in the customer's life.
No, that's really, I love stories like that, and that's really useful to kind of be able to hold on to this example. I love this, like before, after, and then before again, right? My next question is really about people that are getting, so they're hearing you talk about this and they're like, that's right. This is actually something that I can guarantee you, Lorenzo, that no marketing manager that is involved with, managing the website has time allocated for reading reviews, right? They sometimes have customer service that responds to reviews, like, if they, but that's different. This is not about that aspect. It's about actually understanding how the product's being used, right? And the story that was playing in the buyer's mind. So you can use that for marketing. So someone might hear you today and say, you know what, I'm going to now start allocating time towards doing this. Now, they want to get a head start. So my question to you is that, how should they get started?
Yeah. So first of all, starting is 100% free, right? You don't need any tool or fancy, software that does that. So I would say, in sales, they have this kind of like, way of saying that if you're a salesperson and a customer is talking, you should be doing active listening, because you should be developing some empathy towards the prospect to truly understand what the person is talking about. So then you can tailor your either follow-up questions or pitch based on what you heard, right? I would say that the same happens for reviews mining. So if you go through, if you read a review for the first time, right? Um, with make sure that you're actually wearing the marketer's hat. But not only that, analyze word by word what the person is saying in that review. Because oftentimes you realize that the insights that people share, right, are basically like more than you can think of. So another thing that I highly recommend is actually start asking yourself question about what people are actually writing, right? So for example, I'll give you an example. So you and I tomorrow get together to record another episode about a company that makes weighted blankets, right? And from my research, somebody said that the reason why a lot of people buy it is because they have anxieties at night. So what I recommend, so what I did was I started to start on kind of asking myself questions like, okay, who are the people that have anxieties? What are the main reasons why people have anxieties? Who else could be another type of like cohort of people that have anxiety, right? If you start asking yourself questions about who else has this problem or why do they have this, I wonder if these people have these kind of issues or have this kind of experience because of X, Y, and Z. So when you read through the review, just start asking yourself some questions, which you don't have to necessarily respond the same day, but questioning why people are sharing that information is key. And I would start quite kind of like light. So I would start maybe analyzing like, the first 20, 30 reviews. First of all, I would completely eliminate those reviews that are not insightful, such as like, oh, I love your product, I will buy it again, right? Those reviews are basically like a waste of time. So I would first pick the reviews that are the longest, the most text, because those hide a lot of stories and a lot of information. And then I would try to bucket those reviews in different themes based on the stuff that you read in each review. Usually they're always like kind of like some sort of themes that are common across different products, different categories, such as the benefits that the person got from the product, or any anxiety, fear that the person had before before purchasing the product. I've built a spreadsheet, a template that goes through those themes. I can definitely like share in the video below.
Again, comment, guys. If you want the spreadsheet, just drop a comment. We'll reach out to you. Lorenzo will share it with you as well. This is really useful. Let's talk about the downsides. What are the downsides? What are some of the limitations of reviews mining, or maybe there aren't any?
Yeah, so I would say definitely time. It takes time to go through like a bunch of reviews and eyeballing them, and truly, again, I want to stress the importance of truly understand what the person that wrote the review is talking about, and try to avoid to wear the consumer hat and wear the marketer's hat as much as possible, and read through the line from a marketing and decision-making perspective. So length of the reviews for sure. Some companies, have little amount of reviews, so definitely need to get their game on when it comes to like reviews collection. That means, do you even have a reviews strategy, a reviews collection strategy in place, right? And if so, what does that look like? When do you actually send an email asking for reviews? Is that an email? Is that a text message? How can you actually push people to share more information? Because again, earlier I said, nobody cares about just saying, oh, I love this product, I will buy again. I would rather not have that person share that sort of like insight, because it's a waste of time. So even like asking people to share review, information about their experience about, X, Y, and Z could already be something beneficial, because now you have, okay, here's a bunch of alternative solution I've considered before buying your product. Here's the kind of like, things that I wasn't 100% sure about. So now you start collecting quantitative, actually qualitative data on a quantitative way, right? So those 2-3 things are definitely kind of some shortcomings. And on the other side, there's like too many reviews, right? Maybe like you have a product that has 30,000 reviews, and obviously you don't have time to go one by one. I would say that already starting to like go through a bunch of insightful reviews, you're already doing like a 10x better job than, not doing it at all.
And I think, the thing I like about reviews mining is I think we have to think about what the control is, right? Whenever you kind of approach a new idea, you're saying, okay, what is the alternative? So the alternative, there are two alternatives. One is to not do any analysis of reviews, which is obviously not a good idea. The other one is to actually do customer interviews, and customer interviews are very expensive. You have to coordinate with the customer. Then you have to kind of go on a call with them. You need to ask them structured questions. And I think what I really like about reviews mining is that Lorenzo can figure out, it's not perfect. We're not saying that, that there is any replacement for actual customer interviews, that they are different. But here he can, like, within, 4 or 5 hours, process, I don't know, 150, 200 reviews, maybe more. And that's really valuable. And so it's a really good shortcut to kind of kickstarting the insight process, correct?
Yeah. So one thing that I think it's very useful about reviews mining, it's not just about decision making, like understanding why people buy or don't buy and so on, but even understanding their journey on how they got to that
Absolutely.
moment where they bought it, right? And as you said, usually that journey you discover it through customer interviews. Obviously, customer interviews take a long time. If you think about it, you're in front of somebody and you're going deep, and the person knows that he's in front of you and is answering with you. So there's a little bit of like bias. While with the reviews, like if you think about like Amazon or even like Shopify reviews, people are kind of like anonymous. They don't put, like, I don't remember putting like Lorenzo Carreri in writing a review on, whatever Shopify website I bought my product on, right? And that means then they're willing to share more, even like things that they wouldn't be sharing in an interview, for example.
Yeah, no, that's very true. My last question for you is, I want to kind of blow this out and maybe get your insights into, because I know you've talked to me about this. What are some of the crazy things that one can, so far we're talking about like, reviews mining to understand how people are using the product. And I assume you're thinking about it from a marketing perspective, but you've also mentioned to me that reviews mining is also actually a way of doing product innovation. You can actually create, can you talk a little bit about that aspect? Because I think CEOs will really care about that aspect, because they're thinking about, how do I make my next breakthrough blockbuster product, right?
Yeah. So again, this goes back to like the story that people tell in those reviews. So as you said, it's not just about decision making, why they bought X or Y, but it's also like, what else is a product that they have considered. And again, it doesn't have like, this goes back to the jobs to be done framework. It doesn't even have to be a product in the same category. So I'll give you an example. Let's say, John has some sort of like anxiety because of work, right? Let's say. Now, John has different alternatives of curing the anxiety. John can go for a walk in the park, or can go exercising, or he's anxious, he needs to like think about something else, he's going out for drinks with friends, or he can even take pills against anxieties, right? So now you have a pill that competes with going out for drinks, and competes with going out for a walk in the park and going to the gym. So now what happens is that it's not pill from company A that competes with pill from company B, right? It's across different categories. So even that sort of thinking, right, helps people understand, oh, here's exactly who I'm competing with. So there's a lot of kind of like insights that people share around, again, what job they're trying to get done when they buy that product. And whenever you understand why people buy a specific product, now there is a bunch of other additional products that you can develop to make that experience better or help people get the job done. The other thing that is super useful is actually, this goes back to the buyer's journey that I was telling you earlier about. Especially nowadays with the cost and increasing cost of like Facebook ads, for example, Google ads is still super powerful, but the cost still goes up, every year. I think reviews mining is definitely like a source of potential new marketing channels that you could go after, right? Or even like, I was thinking about it. I remember one of those crazy nights when I was reading through reviews before I even had a reviews mining framework. I remember wondering, well, Lorenzo, you read a bunch of reviews for quite popular products that solve a problem, right? How about products that don't really solve a problem, right? So what I started to do is I started to read reviews of like water. Like I wanted to understand why somebody would buy water, right? Which is something that everybody needs. There's a crazy amount of supply of companies that sell water. And there's also like a crazy amount of solutions on how to deliver water, right? There were, so I started to read reviews of companies that were selling bottles of water. And Rishi, like, you might be wondering, what do people have to say about like I read some people would share like 200, 300, 400, 500 words about why they bought that product or their experience buying water. And again, like Rishi, like when you make a decision about water, just go to the supermarket. Like that's at least my experience. Go to the supermarket. All right, that's sparkling water. Boom, done. And I remember, reading that a lot of people were buying water specifically on Amazon because they got it delivered to the house versus going to the supermarket. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. But then they started to share that they also were 70 years old and they had arthrosis in their hands, right? They couldn't carry water because it was too heavy, and even like holding a pen would make their hands painful, right? So I was like, that's super powerful. All of a sudden we discover a niche of people that need water because otherwise, they die. And we can tailor a message in a specific channel. Like, can you, contact 100 publishers, right? They focus on delivering content, or I bet there's even like influencers on YouTube that talk about arthrosis that you can strike a partnership with.
Yeah, that's really interesting. No, I think that's amazing. That's amazing. I love this. I think reviews mining is really interesting, and really for me personally, and hopefully those of you who are watching this episode have seen some of our other episodes. If you haven't, click on the subscribe button so you can see future episodes. But one of the things that you'll see in those episodes is that what Lorenzo does is he starts categorizing the reviews and starts clustering them. And it's really interesting what kind of like you can then start ranking factors. So I remember like in CrossNet, he kind of created number of people or percentage of people that were writing reviews about the social aspect of the product versus, you know, some other aspect, or maybe what other sport they were playing before and it's really interesting to see all of that organized because then it makes it very simple for the marketer to say, okay, I'm going to focus in on these 5 attributes and write copy around it. So I think that's really good. So thank you very much, Lorenzo, for sharing with us. This is just part 1 of my interview with Lorenzo. I'm going to continue doing more because I think as we go forward, we might do some special interviews where he can talk about a specific aspect, he's innovating on it. So he's constantly improving the process. So we'll have updates on this so we can all kind of be on the same page. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, I'm excited to interview as well, all about buyer psychology and copywriting. The amount of knowledge that you have in that brain is mind-blowing. So I'm excited about that interview.
Awesome. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.